that brings me to the second thing I want to bring up, capability. So this crazy looking chart, just pay attention to the horizontal black line on top. That represents human level performance. And all of these vertical lines are various AI models through the years. And it's all the same story. Eventually, they'll hit human level and even surpass human level performance. And another thing you'll notice is as time passes, the slope of the lines get more vertical. That means these models are reaching human level performance faster every time. Now, with this chart, each of these lines represent different types of AI. There's one AI that recognizes handwriting, another AI that recognizes speech, another AI that plays chess. So this is the kind of the traditional way we would think about AI. Some of us probably still think of it the same way. These are highly intelligent devices or machines that do one thing. But today we are not just dealing with, I would call traditional AI. We're now dealing with, in the AI safety report, we called it general purpose AI. So this is the same chart, but instead populated by large language models. The y-axis here is grades, and each dot here represents their performance taking an exam of some sort. And this is 1 year old, so the chart ends at October 2024. So as late as 1 year ago, the latest model at that time, which was ChatGPT 01, had already reached PhD level performance. But here's the punchline. It's not PhD in one field. It's PhD in all fields. So that's the difference between the old AI that we think we know and the AI we have now, which is called general purpose. They can do many, many things, and at human level capacity, 1 year later, I don't know what this chart looks like now, Must be beyond human level performance, at least from a paper standpoint. And what I want to drill down here is this. This is not just a fluke of software development. This chart shows what we knew as Moore's Law. Every year or every 18 months, the capacity of a microchip will double. No? And that's represented by this kind of diagonal line. That used to be the slope of Moore's Law over the years for AI models. So the y-axis here is floating point operations, meaning the number of calculations per second. And then you notice somewhere in 2010, that slope broke and accelerated. So what happened in 2010? 2010 was the year that a company called NVIDIA started producing GPUs for things other than graphics. GPUs were originally produced for games, rendering high-resolution video. And then what this company realized is the same technology you can use to produce video and images can be used for crypto mining. It can be used for AI. And you noticed when that slope broke, all of these large language models started popping up. Why? Because of the GPU, they're now able to crunch not just typical Excel sheet type of data, but any type of data. Big data, as they call it, text, images, anything. And that's the renaissance called deep learning that has led to large language models today, and these models that can pass PhD level exams. Now, one thing is not in debate. That slope continues to increase even beyond the date. So we're not dealing just with software, we're dealing with physics. For as long as deep learning continues to evolve, the capacity of these machines will increase. I was just talking to Itamar earlier, like where AI is now, very far from where it was a year ago. A year ago, people complained about things like hallucinations, etc. Now people barely think about it. In fact, now the frontier is AI is writing software. That was something that even for myself as a software developer, I didn't see that coming. That one of the first jobs to potentially be displaced by AI is software development. Just ironic, right? Now, let's talk about jobs. I think that's the most important part. So this is another graph in the, sorry to bore you with charts. This is the last chart you'll see. Oh, not really, second to the last chart. So the x-axis here is salary, and the y-axis is how much of that job is exposed to AI. Long story short, the higher your salary, the more your job is exposed to AI. Exposed doesn't mean replaceable. It just means you're probably doing more tasks that AI could help with or do. But I think this flies in the face of another assumption we had in the past, which is AI will automate low-level work. But what we're finding out now, remember back maybe 10 years ago, we expected AI to be robotic and replace factory labor. We didn't realize they were going to go after the white-collar jobs first, like artists, legal, and I'll have a chart on that in a minute. So this is the conundrum that I feel as business people we need to think about. It's not a linear thing. In other words, AI coming in doesn't mean they're going to replace the low-level workers. They could replace anyone. I guess the thing is, intention plays a big deal. And then that term again called human in the loop. Early this year, the IMF came up with this chart. I'll zoom in a bit. And what they tried to do was measure how many jobs are actually exposed to AI. And you can see that from the green part of the bar. So every bar here is a job. The green component is how much of that job's tasks is actually exposed to AI. Or rather the other way, is not exposed to AI. So the more green your job is, the better. So this is the top of that chart. So as no surprise, architecture, engineering, science, insurance, computer programming. So these are jobs that are highly exposed to AI. And what's on the bottom? You have things like building, landscape, veterinarians. So they're still safe from the AI apocalypse, apparently, right? But there was another set of insight from this report. So one part is the green, which is how much of your job is not exposed to AI. But the more interesting component is the blue and the red. The blue represents how much of your job is complementary to AI. In other words, AI can work with you. And the red is the opposite. How much of your job is not complementary to AI? So if and I promise this is the last chart you'll see, sorted this chart by the red bars. On top are the jobs that are not complementary with AI. In other words, if people wanted to, they could replace these jobs with the bots. And what do we see? Office and business support. That's pretty much everyone. Information services. Legal and accounting. I'm actually an accountant by training, never practiced. Good thing. Activities of head offices. So these are pretty much BGC and Makati jobs, mostly, right? So what's on the bottom? Again, building, landscape, transportation. So yeah, transport, especially in the Philippines, we'll need humans to do that for the time being. But even transport here, you see there's a blue component. So even if you had a self-driving car, that's actually more augmentation of a driver rather than a replacement of a driver. And that's something that's worth, I think, thinking about. That back in the day, it was science fiction for us to imagine that jobs, humans can be replaced. I don't think humans will, be completely replaced. But we have to be very honest about tasks. How much of our tasks can be done by a machine? One of the sorriest jobs I've ever seen, no disrespect, is you see this in some malls and some buildings where you have a human operator of an elevator. Those jobs used to exist in the 19th century, and some of them still exist today in the Philippines, where you literally tell the lady, I'm going to the 3rd floor in a 4-story building, where you can easily just push the button. Compare that with these freaky lead buildings where you can't even push the buttons in the elevator. It kind of freaks you out. You have to request your floor from outside the elevator, and the elevator should know where to bring you. And yet we still pay people to press buttons in elevators. That's I think, one of the business questions we need to think about. And when you think about it over a long enough period, we don't have, I don't have it in my slide anymore, but we don't have switchboard operators. We don't have ice cutters. Ice cutters are people who literally cut ice from lakes. That's replaced by refrigerators. And we don't have computers, human computers. A computer was a human back in the day. Back in the 1900s, you had bookkeeper, accountant, and then computer. These are humans who could do scientific calculations in their heads. Imagine back in the turn of the century, you would talk to these people and say, one day you will be a device. And they would say, no, I studied years to become a computer. Right? And now they're obviously a device.